book. Please subscribe for daily videos. American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. I can provide a more detailed summary that will help give you a deeper understanding of the novel, its themes, and character development. However, the book itself is very complex and provocative, and summarizing it at such length might still fall short of capturing the depth and nuance that reading the original text would provide. Full Introduction to American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis, published in 1991, is a dark, disturbing, and satirical exploration of the excesses of 1980s New York City, a time when consumerism, superficiality, and materialism were at their peak. The novel is infamous for its graphic depictions of violence, particularly against women, and its unflinching portrayal of a morally bankrupt, detached society. It is a work that has sparked considerable controversy since its release, but it remains a quintessential piece of American literature from the late 20th century. Chapter 1-5. The novel opens with the main character, Patrick Bateman, introducing himself as a successful investment banker living in New York City. He presents himself as a product of the materialistic, status-driven culture of the 1980s. Bateman describes his high-end daily routines, going to trendy restaurants, fitness centers, and attending exclusive clubs. He constantly references brands like Prada, Rolex, and Chanel, showing his obsession with wealth and appearance. His external persona is polished, but internally he expresses extreme apathy, showing no care for others except as objects for status. Bateman's social circle includes people like his fiancée, Evelyn, his colleagues, and acquaintances who share similar shallow personalities. Their conversations are vapid, filled with name-dropping discussions about consumerism and status. Despite his seemingly normal life, Bateman's thoughts are increasingly disturbed. He fantasizes about committing violent acts, imagining torturing and murdering people in graphic detail, but these fantasies are disconnected from his everyday life. Chapter 6-10. As the story progresses, Bateman's violent fantasies begin to intrude on his interactions with others. He becomes increasingly fixated on his appearance and lifestyle, but his dissatisfaction with his life grows. Bateman is unable to connect with anyone emotionally and sees people as mere objects. He describes his colleagues with disdain and feels disgusted by their superficiality, yet he shares similar traits. His personal life is empty. He's engaged to Evelyn, but they rarely connect on any meaningful level. He also has a brief affair with his secretary, Jean, though his emotional coldness prevents him from forming a genuine relationship with her. Bateman's violent impulses grow more frequent and graphic. He fantasizes about torturing and killing a variety of victims, and the novel becomes increasingly surreal, as his violent thoughts blend with reality. The social interactions he describes become even more hollow and absurd. He spends a lot of time attending high-end dinner parties and discussing trivialities with acquaintances, but these moments are contrasted with graphic, almost dreamlike violence that Bateman imagines. Chapter 11-15. As Bateman's psychological instability deepens, his violent actions escalate. He engages in murder and torture, though his narration remains cold and detached. The chapter shifts between his violent actions and mundane social encounters, creating an eerie contrast. The novel explores Bateman's disconnection from reality, and the violent acts he describes are so graphic and senseless that they seem more like nightmares than anything grounded in reality. His relationships with others are depicted as increasingly fractured and alienating. He maintains a surface-level relationship with his fiancée, Evelyn, though his feelings for her are numb. He also becomes more aware of his inability to fit in with society, though he is still trapped in it, compelled to participate in shallow social rituals. The more Bateman describes his life, the more the distinction between fantasy and reality becomes blurred. Chapter 16-20. In these chapters, Bateman's mental state deteriorates rapidly. He begins to lose touch with reality altogether, unable to distinguish between his brutal fantasies and the real world. Bateman's obsessions with violence and his lack of empathy for others intensify. His behavior becomes more erratic, and his sense of identity begins to fragment. He has trouble keeping track of people, and many of the individuals in his life seem to be vanishing or disappearing without explanation, raising the question of whether Bateman is even capable of distinguishing between what is real and what is imagined. As Bateman's paranoia grows, he questions his own actions, but the ambiguity in the narrative suggests that his sense of reality may be completely warped. These chapters continue to build on the theme of alienation, as Bateman becomes more isolated, both emotionally and psychologically. His actions seem increasingly disconnected from any sense of morality or purpose, suggesting that he is more a product of the environment around him than an autonomous individual. Chapter 21 to 25. At this point, Bateman's violence is almost constant, but it is unclear whether the acts are actually happening or whether they are products of his disturbed mind. He has moments where he confesses his actions to others, but his confessions are dismissed as jokes, further emphasizing the disconnection between Bateman and the world around him. He continues to engage in bizarre and often incoherent interactions with his colleagues and acquaintances, many of whom seem oblivious to his mental breakdown. Bateman's reflections on his identity and his role in society become more fragmented, and he becomes increasingly uncertain about what is real. He acknowledges the emptiness of his existence and the lack of meaning in his actions, yet he still continues to pursue violence as an outlet for his frustration and confusion. This internal conflict is never resolved, and the narrative's uncertainty heightens the sense of dread and nihilism in the story. Chapter 26 to 30. The novel culminates in a chaotic and surreal series of events that further obscure the boundaries between reality and delusion. Bateman's actions become more erratic, and his mental disintegration reaches its peak. He is consumed by a desire to destroy others, but he also begins to question his own existence. The book ends ambiguously, leaving Bateman's fate unclear. The final chapters leave readers wondering if the horrific events he describes ever truly took place, or if they were merely the manifestations of a disordered mind. There is no definitive resolution, and Bateman's fate is left open-ended, forcing readers to confront the ambiguity of the narrative. The novel ends with Bateman confronting the emptiness of his life, but it's unclear whether he has learned anything or whether he will continue in his destructive cycle. Themes and analysis. Materialism and consumerism. A major theme in American Psycho is the emptiness of materialism and consumer culture. Bateman's obsession with brand names, wealth, and social status reveals how hollow these pursuits can be. The characters in the novel are often defined by their possessions, and their identities are shaped by external appearances rather than inner substance. Identity and alienation. Bateman's fragmented sense of self is a central theme. He is unable to connect with others on a meaningful level, and he struggles to maintain a coherent identity. His actions and thoughts are disconnected, and he often questions whether he is real or simply a reflection of the society around him. Violence and morality. The novel's graphic depictions of violence are not just for shock value, they serve as a commentary on the desensitization of individuals in a hyper-violent, consumer-driven society. Bateman's violent acts are often portrayed as meaningless, highlighting the lack of morality in his world. The superficiality of social interactions. The novel constantly contrasts Bateman's violent fantasies with his mundane social interactions. This creates a sense of absurdity, as characters engage in conversations about trivial matters while completely ignoring the darkness beneath the surface. Conclusion. American Psycho is a provocative, chilling, and satirical examination of a society defined by excess, materialism, and moral decay. Through the character of Patrick Bateman, Bret Easton Ellis critiques the superficial values of the 1980s, illustrating the emptiness that lies beneath the surface of wealth and privilege. The novel's graphic violence, unreliable narration, and exploration of alienation and identity have made it a divisive but highly influential work. Though it remains controversial for its explicit content, American Psycho offers a piercing commentary on the moral rot that can result from an obsession with status, appearance, and self-gratification. It is a novel that forces readers to confront uncomfortable truths about society, identity, and the human capacity for cruelty. Thank you for watching. Keep support for daily videos. Make sure like, comment and share. Don't forget to subscribe our channel Minutes Audiobook.